Hello everyone, and I bring you today another recommendation, and it's one of my favourite book series of all time. It's quite a big series, it's over 300 titles long now, and it's perhaps not everyone's cup of tea, but I've really got a great deal of pleasure out of reading them, and that is the Very Short Introductions series by the Oxford University Press. Um, so just a little bit of background on what these books are. Um, you see, the Oxford University Press, the publishing arm of Oxford University, created this book series called the Very Short Introduction series to educate the public on every possible subject out there. So what they do is they get an expert in the field, either one of their professors or a professor at another university, or just an acknowledged expert in whatever criteria they wish to write about. Um, and they write these very small books. They're usually between 100 and 150 pages long. And the aim of the books is to give you a very broad but still in-depth overview of what the subject is. This one is about racism, about the concept of racism, examples of racism, the past and they're currently ongoing, and what the author sees as perhaps the future, what will happen with racism as a concept. Other examples I've got here for you. These are all books in my personal collection, books that I've read and that I've valued highly enough that I wanted my own copy of them. There's Emotion, there's the Book of Mormon, there is Feminism, HIV and AIDS, and a few other books I'll show you in a minute, my personal recommendations for you to, which I recommend you read because I found them really informative. And like I said, it's over 300 titles long now. They publish about 3-4 new books in the series each month. And it covers the whole range. The subjects that they go from include famous individuals like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, to different things in the world, like basic things like science, mathematics, geography, history, to really obscure and detailed things such as the history of Christian art, information science, and let's actually open one up and I shall give you a few of the obscure titles just to give you an example. Continental philosophy. The European Union. I found that really interesting. As a British person, wasn't really taught much about the European Union at school, so I found that quite informative. The history of astronomy, geopolitics. I mean, as you can see, there's a huge list of books. This list is by no means exhaustive. This book on HIV and AIDS was published quite a while ago. They do update the newer editions of the books with the newer list. But yeah, I mean, that's partially why I quite like these books. I found these books to be really interesting. And I started reading them because I wanted to expand my knowledge in areas which I wasn't too aware of. For example, one of the books I'm going to recommend, this is the very first one I read. This was on the Cold War. And again, I wasn't really taught much about the Cold War when I was at school, secondary school and primary school. So this basically gave me not just an overview of what it was and how long it went on for. It gave me an in-depth account of event after event to how the Cold War ended and the state of today. I mean, it's just fantastic. Whilst it is written by someone who's an expert in the field and it's made to be an academic introduction into the said field, it's still so accessible to the public. Just to pick up the copies like I did, sit down and start reading through the field. And what I've also noticed is as you read more of these, you'll start to see crossovers. I mean, mentions of say the Cold War or how it had grounding in the First World War is mentioned. When I read the First World War, at the end of the First World War, it mentioned about the hostilities that led to the Cold War and events across the world. Yeah, the fact that they slot in so well together, I think makes them as a series and as a whole truly represent what the world is, all interconnecting elements, not just a basic this is what the subject is and this is what this is completely. It has no reference to anything else. No, they don't do that. This really does show just how interconnected the world is. So the books that I wanted to recommend, which I thought were great reads at the end of the day in the series, was firstly The Cold War, which I thought was a brilliant introduction into just the recent European and global history of the last century. Egyptian mythology. There's a lot of confusion over Egyptian myths because whilst Roman myths and Greek myths are generally more well known because they're more spoken about in popular culture, what Egyptian myths I feel are still used, but the subtleties behind it, like why some of the gods are animals or have animal parts of their bodies, or the entire process of the afterlife, etc., or why there's so many Egyptian gods, I don't think that's really well explained. But this broke it up into easy, manageable chapters and did actually explain the different parts of Egyptian mythology, and also gave you examples of Egyptian relics that are actually here in the UK, which you can go and see, that we brought over from Egypt during the whole exploration colony phase back in the past. The First World War. The Second World War is so much talked about, but the First World War gives you such a grounding on why the events of the Second World War occurred, why the Cold War occurred. The fact is that whilst they won the war, the tensions and the reasons the First World War started hadn't been resolved, and this really did explain how it all started. Such a great in-depth read at the end of the day. It really gave you a picture of the mindset of both sides of the conflict. Galaxies. Now there is a bit of in-depth maths in a couple of the chapters, but it has such facts on what people currently know about what galaxies are, how they exist. There's some great little facts about astronomy in here that I didn't know about before. Yeah, just fantastic, and really gives you a sense of perspective of our world and our place in the universe. And last but not least, Druids. A bit more of an obscure one, not really related to a lot of current history or politics, but it gives you such an example of the backgrounds of the European Celtics, the fact of some of the Celtics' beliefs, how the Druids fitted into it, what the Druids were, and for example, one thing it taught me was the fact that modern age Druids don't actually have any connection to the old Druids. This was kind of the modern age Druids were a revival of the idea of Druids that were preserved from the records of the Roman soldiers, but it wasn't actually a continuous order from ancient times up to modern times. So a lot of what modern Druids believe and such might actually not be at all what the ancient Druids practiced, etc. But this is the sort of thing I'm going on about, that you have to pick up these brilliant books, sit down and have a read. Like I said, they're only 150 pages long, usually at max 100 to 150. So there's absolutely no reason why you just can't go along, pick them up, and have a read. They're available in most bookstores. They're available online. They're usually available in deals as well. You can get some starter box sets. They're about there's about 8 starter box sets, I think, that are focused on particular topics. There's the politics box set, the American box set. Yeah, and if you want these great little nifty books and you have particular interest in, say, politics, definitely that would be a great bargain buy for you to get. So yeah, anyway, that's my just a little recommendation on this series, the very short introduction series. Please definitely go and check them out. If you love the series already, maybe do share about what you love about the series in the comments below, or tell me what your first book was, which one introduced you to the subject. Right. Yeah, I hope I've actually introduced some people to it though, and I hope to hear from you guys very soon.